Hello, and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your SpaLife Show. SpaLife is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony can coexist. I am so thrilled to have join us here today our special guest, Teri Karjala. She is a licensed professional counselor. She is a credentialed trauma therapist and a transformational life strategist. Teri, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I am so delighted to be here today.
Oh, I just want to jump right in. I know that our listeners are going to want to hear more about what you're up to. And I'd love to talk more about your book, about Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life, with the foreword also by Jack Canfield. Can you share a little bit about the process of that and how you wrote that?
I never wanted to write a book like this ever. And so I have to tell you, it was a kind of a painstaking process for me. I'm just going to be totally transparent and totally truthful here that, it was about 6 to 6.5 years in the making.
Wow.
Yeah. So I never wanted to write this book. So I've always wanted to write a children's book, but I've never wanted to write a personal development book. And so over the years, I had clients come to me and say, you need to write a book. And I said, nope, not happening. And I had other people come to me and say, well, you have great tools, you have great information, you should write a book. I said, not happening. And so I dug my heels in long and hard on this one. And at the time, I was writing articles for another magazine, and I was a bi-weekly columnist for a couple other things. And they're like, well, just take what you're already currently using, because I had all this massive content. And so then I was like, well, if I were to go write a book, what would I write about? And so I kind of outlined, kind of a rough outline. And then I, started taking some materials that I had already created. And then I said, no, I really don't want to do this. So I put it back. I was kind of a third of the way in, and I was like, no, you know what? I'm going to put this back on the back burner. So I did it for a couple of years. And then I pulled it back off, and it went back and off and on of this back burner for years. And so finally, around 5 years ago, a friend of mine said, please just hit send. Like, it's 90% done, go. And so, I finally submitted it to a publishing company. And, my biggest hang up, I think, was I was so self-critical of my own writing. And, and I think you've written a book, and I think, that it's like, you want it to be perfect. Right. And right. So, and then you keep editing and you keep, self-editing. And then you just like, at some point you just got to let it go. And so that's what I finally did. And then right as I hit, send to it, someone's like, well, you need to have someone write a foreword. And I was like, well, who am I going to have write a foreword? And so then I just I used, kind of my belief in the laws of the universe, and I put it out there to the universe to say, okay, who's going to write my foreword? And that's a bit of a long story. But the message that I got loud and clear multiple times was Jack Canfield. And so he gets over 100 requests per week to write forwards, and rarely does them. And so yeah, so it was a bit of a process, but there was this knowingness that came with it. And so yeah, here it is. It's now it's taken a life of its own. So it's been pretty exciting journey so far. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so for those listeners out there, for the average person, I think it takes about a year to write a book.
If you're not in resistance.
So don't compare those. I mean, don't give up hope.
Right. Well, here's the thing. This is a perfect example. When you're called to bring certain work into the world, you can keep pushing it away, and it keeps showing up in your face, right? Those are the things that we need to listen to and really lean into. And it's going to happen if that is part of our path. And, one of those things that came up in you writing the book is, talking about getting out of your comfort zone. So I'd love for you to touch on, which is really ironic that that's a part of your book, and you had to get out of your own comfort zone in actually writing the book, right? So I'd love for you to share.
Yeah, I was up against so much resistance, right?
Yeah.
And I talk about that concept, not in the book necessarily, but on other platforms. I've talked about this resistance, right?
Yes.
And what we persist. And literally, like, it was one of those like life lessons for me, truly. But, I do talk about getting outside the comfort zone because, the more we get out of that comfort zone, the more that we are exposed to, I truly believe, more possibilities come our ways. And so, I grew up in a very small town in Kansas. I mean, I literally felt like I lived in a box, and it was a little safe box, and it was a pretty little safe box. And I shared with someone the other day, I said, I was an extraordinarily shy kid. Extraordinary. I mean, beyond shy. Like, I was the kid, hiding behind the mom and just extraordinarily shy. And I remember, one of those transformational moments in my life where there was something around sixth grade that like came alive for me. And in that moment, I just kind of knew that I needed to kick this shyness. And so what I did was I signed up for the only thing that you could not be shy in, and that for me was cheerleading.
Wow,
so
that is a stretch.
I pushed so far outside my comfort zone, and I just felt so shy and reserved, and I felt like this big, literally. And when you're a sixth grader trying out for a seventh grade cheerleading squad, you not only had to go to the high school, and granted, my high school was small, but there was over 100 students in a gymnasium, and you're the only being on that gymnasium floor. And I just felt so tiny. I just felt small. My spirit felt small, but then I did my cheer, and I don't know if they felt bad for me or they just like they needed people, but I made the cheer team. And and so I truly had to fake it. I faked it for months. Like putting myself into this, cheerleading role, right? And being out there to cheer and support the team. And so for months I faked it. And then pretty soon, right, my comfort zone grew. And so that came, and then like by my 8th grade year, I became cheer captain, right? And then it was like I assumed that role, and I got comfortable in the uncomfortability. And for me, that was a huge risk, right? And so just continued taking those risks and continue expanding. And I could share story after story after story.
I bet.
And even with the book was one of those stretches for me, because I, as you heard, like I was really resistant to it, and when it came to fruition, like the magic behind it has just been like, I mean, the last 2 months have just been a whirlwind for me. It's just been a really neat experience. So
well, Teri, this is such so heartwarming for me because, especially that you had this experience so early in, grade school. And, my grandchildren are in grade school right now. And I listen to my, granddaughter, and just the politics that happen and how you feel at that point of your life of, who's popular and, do people like you and who's your friend, and just all of the energy of the things around that, that can really mold what path you go on and who you're being as a person. And for someone as a young person being in that place and really stepping into it and having that awareness, this is the part that, I would love for our listeners about, really embracing that and remembering those times in your life where you felt small and you felt like you couldn't do something. And, maybe you took the direction of not stepping into it, right? But to at any point in your life that you can step into it, and it is getting out of that comfort zone, that stretch, that you do need to kind of fake it and be like, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing here, but I'm going to take that risk so that I can expand my experience. So I really appreciate that you've put that out in the world, because it can start that young and it can affect our path as an adult.
And honestly, like I always do these, I don't know what I call my little testers. And there's always things that I'm signing up for that I'm just like, can I do this? And it's like the most random things. It's like, I want to go take this new class, and I want to go, I want to go race a race car. I want to go jump out of a plane. And I always do these. Years ago, about 8 years ago, I said, you know what, can I run a marathon? Let's try it. And so, I do these little testers, but the cool thing about these little testers is that it just continues to find more and more evidence that supports, that says, one, I survived it. Two, am I okay? Three, I can do it. And now there's more things that are showing up in my life as a result of it, kind of the secondary gain from it, that reinforces all of it. And so I was on this conversation the other day with this person, and I'm trying to get something aligned for myself in the business. And she's like, no, it's not possible. And my first reaction
not possible.
was, I know, right? I guess I don't take no for, as an answer very well, but I was like, my first response was, there has to be another way.
Yeah.
And she goes, Teri, I'm sure you'll find another way. And I'm like, okay. For me, that was, but because I'm used to not necessarily getting my way, but like looking at other possibilities.
Right.
And sometimes we get like these, blinders on that says that we can only go, this direction, right?
Right.
But when we start opening up and getting outside of our comfort zone, there's millions and billions of possibilities that lie there. And honestly, when she said that to me, my brain immediately went into like kind of like, figuring it out, like going kind of, what are the other possibilities? And within, after that conversation, within like 2 to 3 minutes, I came up with 2 other possibilities. And I reached out to them and I said, oh, I can do this. This makes sense. So it wasn't the path that I thought, but now it's opened up 2 other doors for me to have some possibilities with. So
yeah. Well, you've started to train your brain to think outside the box and to think of possibility and to look at, hey, if a way you may not see now, you're allowing yourself to step into that. And, I'd love to actually put this challenge out to our listeners of, really embracing, Teri, that concept you're talking about of having these testers in your life. Like, what is something that you can implement, in your life today, if not right now, that you've either been putting off or you think is a stretch for you, or you're not even sure you could do it, and to just actually step into it, to actually just do it. And even if you don't know how you're going to do it, just to make that decision to do it, just to see how it goes. And it could work, it could not work, but that's not the point, right? It's about just stepping into that to see, what happens and where it can go. And I know, Teri, you've been in counseling field for, since, 1999, working with clients of all ages. And today you're the founder of Talking with Teri. People can generally come to you in a place of feeling unfulfilled and way down and anxiety and all these things that are happening with them. And, when people come, what have you found, like when they're coming from this place, when they don't see a way and they're coming from that lower energy place, what are some of the ways that you start with them when the clients don't see a way?
I would say a couple things. I feel like one of the biggest challenges that I have found, either in the counseling practice or even with my other coaching business, is that a lot of people get ourselves in the way. And it's truly, truly our mindset.
Yes.
It's truly our self-sabotage. It is getting ourselves in the way of our true success. And I feel like in order for us, and we've all heard, we talk about the brain and we look at, how we create a metaphor with it using the iceberg. And so 10% of the iceberg is what we see at, what we can see to the naked eye, right? And then 90% of the iceberg is below the surface, and that is what we can't see. So if we think about what the 10% that we can see, that's kind of like our conscious thoughts. So whatever thoughts you're having right now, those are conscious thoughts. Now, anything that's underneath, that subconscious and unconscious, which is around 90%, that's kind of what's running the show. And for most people, Dr. Joe Dispenza says that 90% of those thoughts that we have day in and day out are negative. And so if you have all these thoughts, right? I mean, we have the National Science Foundation said that we have anywhere from 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and only 2,000 of those are conscious. So we think about, when we get ourselves in a way, and a lot of times, people will say, well, you need to say your 3 affirmations per day. And I'm not a big component of that, because what happens is the 90% that's telling you you can't do it, or that you're not good enough, or that you're not smart enough, or whatever blank enough you are, not allowing you, and it's not serving you. And so we just get ourselves in the way of that. So there's a couple tools that I like to give people right out of the bat, because it stops those negative thoughts from taking control. And if you think about it, it's kind of like a cancellation button. And so for, for your listeners right now, get a pen and paper. I want you to write this down.
If you're driving, pull over.
Yeah, pull over. Yes. Let's be safe. Okay. Or just, flag this as your favorite video and come back to it. And so how this technique works, it essentially is, so we have all these negative thoughts that I'm going to say, so for the folks that can see me, on the video, you can see negative thought comes in, but what happens is, then it goes in, and then we have this part in our brain called the reticular activation system. And that part in the brain then scans our environment to find evidence to support whatever it is. So if we're having positive thoughts, the cool thing about it, it creates more evidence around positive thoughts. If it's negative thoughts, not the great thing about it is it creates more evidence to support the negative thoughts. So if I'm thinking, hey, I just messed up, the brain goes, yeah, you did this wrong, you didn't do this, you didn't do this. And pretty soon it just, those negative thoughts just grow and fester until at some point, if we hold on to them long and hard enough, those become a belief system. And those are harder to eliminate, because I like talking about, let's eliminate the head trash. And I have lots of little tools that I can work individually with people to eliminate those with. But this tool helps to stop it so that we can at least open up again and be more back in the flow of things. So the tool comes in like this. So it goes, negative thought comes in, and then I say, so write this down, interesting point of view, that I have this interesting point of view, interesting point of view that I have this point of view. And we're going to say that 3 times. So interesting point of view that I have this interesting point of view, interesting point of view that I have this interesting point of view, interesting point of view that I have this interesting point of view. And what that does is it kind of cancels it out. We can't have 2 thoughts at the same time. And then what I like to do is put some like sugar on top of this. And then I like to open up with a generative question of some things of the sort like, what else is possible? What else can I create and generate today? And those kinds of things start to open us up back up to the possibility versus shutting down. One, we shut down the energy. And energy is meant to stay in constant flow and constant motion. And so when we start cutting off that energy, we stop the flow, which doesn't allow us to really truly step into what I call the zone of brilliance. And so as much as possible, we want to be able to, maintain those thoughts, because what we think about, we bring about. And so we want to be able to create the things that we do desire versus spending the time and energy and brain power on the things that we don't.
So I'd love for you to have, some clarification for our listeners in terms of having the affirmations. And you're saying that is it the affirmations alone, or that utilizing the cancel aspect part first, and then, affirmations can actually work better, or you don't use them at all? Or
I love using affirmations as long as we're canceling out anything that's going to prevent us from doing that. Definitely.
So preventing the self-sabotage.
Yes, making sure that we're out of self-sabotage, making sure that that we are in a place where we can receive those affirmations, and those affirmations can be very powerful, but I think we need to do them more than just 3 times. And making sure that we're, like I said, making sure that we're confronting any of those negative thoughts and replacing those to eliminate those, so they're not causing havoc, because then those positive affirmations that are to help us and guide us and help create doesn't get wasted.
Well, we're such in synergy with this because, I find even when I help people organize their life, so many times it's like, they're like, I know what to do, but I'm not doing it. And, there's like, that shame around it. And there's all these like this energy that's disempowering them actually getting things done. And it really comes to the mindset part. If you don't tackle that aspect of it, you could have all the tools and know exactly how to do something. But if you've been telling yourself you're going to be doing something for, a year, 5 years, 20 years in some cases, then there is something in the mindset aspect of it that is, holding you back subconsciously. And it's helpful for, the listeners to know that, hey, so many things that are running the show is that, unconscious aspect of ourself, that if we don't break that pattern and make that happen, that can really, come into effect. So I so appreciate that you empower, women and women entrepreneurs to really address those aspects of it. And, we are definitely in alignment with that, because it's such, it's a foundational thing to be able to do, to step into those bigger things that you do, which leads me into, talking about, with SpaLife, we want to, design your life. And so many people live by default, where they just kind of let things roll and happen. And I know you have some, amazing things that you do to consciously create your experience. I'd love for you to share some of that, especially about how you're setting daily intentions.
I have, and I don't have it with me right this second. So it's over there. I can grab one if you need to. But I start every day with my daily intentions planner. And that is something that I've actually created. I have to tell you, in the beginning, about 11 years ago, I just created my own. And it looked so pretty. And I took it to Kinko's, and I, spiral bound it, and then I decorated it with my doodles, and it was all fabulous. And then people started asking me, where did I get this from? And I said, it's mine.
Right. Well, and for a lot of people who don't know you, you are an amazing doodler. I've been in a class with you, and you just take words and make them into pictures and make them so pretty that it's fascinating to sit next to you as you absorb information and use it as part of your learning tool.
Yeah, it is. And so, and that's just the way it's more socially, I found that it's more socially acceptable to look like I'm taking copious notes and doodling versus jumping jacks. It's just, I don't know, it's more socially acceptable. So, but my daily intentions planner, I actually, about a year ago, actually less than a year ago, I actually had a designer come in and create these so that they looked pretty. So I use that. So I use it. So I always tell people it's combining brain science with the laws of attraction in one planner. And so I do it at the last 40, I start my day, or start my night, I should say. So the last 45 minutes of your night, you process that 7 times more than you do the rest of your day. And so I capitalize on that time, and I fill that with yummy, juicy stuff. So that's my gratitude practice. That's my daily, setting my intentions for the next day. And so I fill that out at night. And
wait, I want to capture that, because I think people don't realize that, as far as that time. And is it a specific time of the evening, or is it just considered before you go to bed?
So before you go to bed. So that last
about 45 minutes.
Yeah. So that's it. Researchers have found that your brain processes that so much more. And so what happens is when you're really clear and you're feeling that time, which is yummy, juicy stuff, with this, with gratitude and, what is my plan for the next day? What happens is the brain actually goes to work. And when you're sleeping, I call it your little minions come out. Your little minions come out and they start doing work. And I'm pretty sure they're having a little party in my brain. And so they start figuring out the how. Because I think so many times we get caught up on, how is this going to happen? And so, you know what? I don't even worry about the how. I just allow the how to show up for me.
Right.
And so I'm very strategic. I talk about, what are my quarterly goals? What are my quarterly targets? What am I heading towards? And then every day I'm taking some inspired action towards that. And so that's documented on my form.
Right. And that's a key word right there, inspired action, right?
Yes. And then I have a section where I have my intentions. And honestly, that's just really fun. It sounds really silly, but I get to put a design or an image or a number or a word or something. And I just can't wait until it shows up in my environment. And so what this does, so yesterday I put the number 999. I wanted it to show up in my life. And so interesting enough, there was a car that kind of cut me off the highway, and his license plate was 999. And I was like, oh.
I love it. So you were pre-ordering from the universe.
I was pre-ordering. But when you start seeing that evidence, because sometimes people don't recognize the evidence, there's evidence always showing up for us, but we don't take it in and we don't recognize it. So this is like, I'm just increasing that muscle. So it's a playful thing that I do to increase that muscle every day to show, oh, there it is. And so that becomes part of my evidence that I'm calling into existence.
Right. Well, I find it so fascinating that, some people feel like when they're doing their quote work in the world, right, that it's so serious, but that whole element of play and, just allowing that, that really opens up the creativity, makes it fun. It actually makes it part of the journey. So that playfulness, I think, is such a, an important aspect of that. And does any of this play into, I know you have a 33-second manifestation tool. How does that come into play with all this?
I do. So I just, you get really specific on what it is that you'd like to create. And honestly, some of my biggest things that I've called into existence has come from this tool. And so I will also stand in front of my vision board, and just for 33 seconds, I just stand in that emotional being as if it's already created. And it's really powerful just because vibrationally, when you start aligning yourself, and I do this at least once a day, if not twice a day, when you start standing yourself in that vibrational alignment, the universe has to provide that same vibrational, experience. And so, so that is very powerful.
Right. Now, is there something specific? Is there something specific about 33 seconds? I mean, not 32 or 34. I know it's a powerful number.
So 33 is associated with your ascended masters. And some people will say 44, which is connected to more of your angel realm. And so it's kind of like calling in and, being in place with that, with that energy in that space. So, yeah.
I love that. That's good. So then how does this, I love just all the planning, and, I'm always talking to my clients about, how much benefit you get at planning your day the night before. And I love just the articulation about how the brain comes into play with part of that. So that's just like more evidence of why that is such a powerful thing for people to step into. So that is things that you're doing like the night before, and then, doing your tool throughout the day. What are you doing with your 6-minute, exercise routine starting the day too? I love these layering upon amazing things that you're up to.
Literally, so I'm a very efficient person. I like to combine. And so years ago, I was taught these different tools, like, part of it's some brain gym, and part of it's like opening up your heart chakra. And I'm like, there has to be a way that I can combine all of these into one tool. And so I'm not going to demonstrate because people will laugh, but I have demonstrated on my lives before. And I've showed this tool, and it's a 6-minute exercise. So I would like a high intensity workout, but I don't like to spend hours at the gym.
Okay, I hear you, sister.
There's actually been some research that says that you can do high intensity workout for 3 minutes.
Right.
So I can throw that in. I'm like, I'll make it 6 minutes. So I do a 2-minute like intense ab workout on the floor, and then the rest 4 minutes. I do this. Some people, I call it the seizure dance. Some people look at it and call it the monkey dance. My husband, one time, I was doing this at home, and he forgot his wallet, and I always do it when he leaves. I don't want him to see it. So.
He's like, is this what you do when I'm gone?
I know. And so he comes running up the hall, because he hears me like banging it upstairs, and he comes running up going like, what's wrong? And he looks at me and he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, and he just kind of like, he says,
I'm working.
I don't know what's going on here, but I'm just gonna remove myself. And so it's this ongoing joke now that I'm gonna do my exercise. But you know what? The women that I've taught, 4 minutes is really intense. And it's just a combination of 3 different exercises. And I've put a kind of a cardio aspect to it.
Right.
And it like abs like nobody's business. I mean, and so some people can only make it a 1 minute, because you kind of have to work up to 4 minutes because it's pretty intense.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
I love
but
that.
I kind of sprinkle. There's a lot of things that I do in my little, silly universe over here.
Right.
And
It's so funny. I love how you say that again.
It sets me up for success for the day. Like, it's just like, here's how I start my day.
Right.
Here's,
Yeah. Well, what's so brilliant about this is that, and we're going to go into this whole, like, I'm so busy conversation, that people have all these things, but, when you look at tools that are like 33 seconds, or that there's 6 minutes, and that takes such little time, time that you really plan the night before really saves you hours of time the next day of really being intentional about how you're spending your time. I'd love for you, I know we're running out of time here where you and I could just talk all day, but I'd love to hear how you shifted your story about being so busy.
So that is a big concept, and I love that is a big when I go to workshops or I'm teaching or training, I ask people, what is the biggest thing that gets in your way? And most of the time, people will say time.
Yes.
And so when I found this out, and this was consistently across thousands of people that I had talked to, I was like, I got to research like how can I debunk this myth, right? And so David Schwartz, he wrote the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. And he truly does talk about, and he debunks this, and he talks about, and he lines it up, and he essentially goes through like the average person that's working a 40-hour work week with commute. He breaks it all down with your commute, with eating, with snacking, with recreational, with kids, with activities, like everything, even like social, like watching football games and things like that. He breaks it all down, and what is left is actually 24 hours. And so, and when I teach and I talk about this, I say, you know what, let's pretend he got it wrong. Okay. And let's take another 10 hours just because he got it wrong. Okay.
Right.
That's still, 14 hours left in our days. And so people will ask me, Teri, you seem to get so much done. And one, I have to say, like, I choose not to watch TV. I choose not to watch news. These are personal choices for me. I choose to limit my time on social media outlets and things like that. But I think there's so much in a social technology world that we spend getting trapped. I mean, people will say, you get what is it? You get lost in the Facebook, world.
The black hole.
Yeah, right. And so, but being really strategic with how we spend our time,
yes.
And because I call my, I have a lot of projects. I always have projects going on, and but I'll spend like 2 hours on this project or this whatever creation, but I spend that time out, and so it's one of those things that after I saw that and I broke that down, I'm like, wow, I have a lot of time. I have 24 hours each week that I can do what I want with. And so I've just shifted my mindset around it and says, I have a lot of time. It's just how I choose to use it.
Right. So, well, we all have 24 hours and people do some amazing things in those 24 hours. And it comes down to that choice. And, before I forget, one of the things I love to ask my guests is, the environments that we create, they can pull us into our experience. I really found that, the experience that you want to have in your bedroom versus your kitchen versus your office are different experiences that we want to have. And we create environments to really support us in that. So that being said, what is your favorite room in your home and why?
My favorite room in my room. You know what? I have to say it's our basement.
Tell me more.
Because we finished it about a year and a half ago, and we have a movie theater in one section, and so we do home evening nights on Friday nights. It's where we connect. We have this other area that we socially entertain, so it's like all the neighbors come over, and we have such a loving, fun neighborhood that we live in. And then there's another section that's it's an extra bedroom, but my daughter and I have turned it into a craft room, and so that's where we go and craft. So we spend so much time in our basement. It's a garden level one, so it's not creepy. It's lit well and everything. But I have to say, like, we spend so much family time, connection time, social time, and creation time down in our basement. So I have to say, I love our basement.
Yeah. I love how focused you are on having fun, and that just having how you want to experience your life. And this is exactly what we talk about in SpaLife about, having, it's a lifestyle, right? And we can push through all of, the accomplishment aspects, but, what is the journey and what's the expression? And are you, satisfied and having fun and having that? And so I love that you've created that in your environment. And, with that, what do you find that is like the biggest challenge that people are facing when pursuing their dreams?
So I talked about self-sabotage. I talked about time. I think the next piece would just be taking action, like truly taking action, and being consistent in that action. Because I think sometimes we start something and then we may not see the results right away. And so then we give up, right? And so I let people know that, you have to take some inspired action every day and be consistent with that, and then start seeing the results. Anytime I learn something new, whether it's a tool, I always want to say, is this really good? Like, is this really going to help me? And so I will go like kind of crazy with it. I'll go and do it like 50 times or 100 times in one day to see if I can find the results. And if I find the results and I see the results, then I take it as like, oh, this is good. I will pass this on and share it. But I think so many times we give up before the going gets good, as it said. So
I love that.
So when the magic, yeah.
Yeah, so good. Well, Teri, I know that you have something special for our listeners. Would you like to share that?
Yes, absolutely. So they can go to, you've included the link, right? So
yes, they will get the link, and people can look at the show notes as well.
Fantastic. So you guys can go to my website, and there's a free link so that you guys can get the first chapter of my book, Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life. And I'd like to invite everyone to take a look at that and, see some of the tools that are listed there for you, that you can really create the magic that is already inside of you come alive.
Right. Oh, I love that so much. And I know that, this has just been so fun and fascinating. And I just so appreciate you being here with us. Our listeners are going to want to connect with you. What is your, how is it that people can connect with you personally?
The best way is through the website. It's Talking with Teri. It's spelled TERI.com.
Right.
And then I also do a Facebook Live every Tuesday night. So I always invite people to come and join that as well.
Right. Well, and also just for the, people who are listening and may not get back around to the show notes, can you also give the link as well for your free gift?
Yes, maybe. I don't think I have it in front of me.
Let me see if I
have it in front of you.
Let's see here. Let's see. I do. So we've got talkingwithteri.com chapter-1, and you write out 1, O-N-E. So it's Talking with Teri, and Teri is T-E-R-I. So talkingwithteri.com /chapter, and then dash, and then 1, O-N-E. So I always like to do that because sometimes people want to write it down in their car, and they'll come around and they'll be able to get it. There's always a way, but if we can make it simple and easy for them, then that's helpful as well. So I like to put that out there. And also, as our listeners are writing and really wondering about this conversation that we're having around spa life and how you can incorporate more of that in your life, I also have a free gift for you at dianehalfman.com /guide, where you're actually able to, look at what are some of the things that you can bring into your environment and, be able to support you with that. So, Teri, thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your wisdom and just your efficiency and your fun and all the things that you're up to. I love connecting with you.
Thank you so much. This has been, it's been an extraordinary day. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. So, all right, listeners, make sure that you take some of these awesome tips. And, if you are in the Facebook or you're looking at the YouTube, please put in the comments, what are some of the ahas, the things that you're going to take away and the things that you're going to implement. And if you have any, questions or comments, make sure you tagged either Teri or myself, and we'll come around and answer them and connect with you. And we'd love to support you as you're on your journey to do your big work in the world. And as always, live your spa life. Bye for now. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.